Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you. Another episode here at the Career Education and College and University Annual Conference in Indianapolis, Indiana. Always by my side, at least this week. He's Douglas Carlson. He is head of partnerships at Lead Square. Douglas, welcome back again. In fact, I don't think I'm letting you move. You just keep sitting there.
Yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, but you did if it wasn't said enough, you did knock my microphone over and almost killed the entire podcasting day.
That did happen.
Because if I lost this mic, then there'd be no mic for me to talk, and I was going to make you take over.
Well, I'm glad it all worked out then, you know.
Well, we've done a lot of these, but there are more amazing colleagues to talk to in and around higher education today, especially those serving career colleges and universities in that space. Let's bring them in one at a time. Here we go. He's Joe Fisher. He is VP of Solutions at Student First. Joe, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the walk-up music.
Did you know you were going to have any?
I did not.
Oh, okay, well, I got to make sure that the next one's even better for your colleague. Let's bring him in now. He's David Meek. He's CEO at Student First. Right? The appropriate music. David, what's going on? How are you?
Hey, good morning.
All right, guys. The mics are yours. Tell us about Student First. What is it? What do you do?
Student First is student information system technology. Joe and I have both been in this world of student information systems for a long, long time. I've been at it about 35 years, and Joe, you've been at it 25. So by now, I think we've seen and done about everything in the student information systems world. So we have a lot of experience working with bringing these technologies to institutions to improve their workflow, their processes, engage their students. We pretty much have an impact across the entire institution. Our products and our services impact the entire student life cycle, and without what student information systems are all about, schools would have a hard time operating.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Well,
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Joe.
Oh,
Please.
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, it's the backbone.
Yeah.
Right. You know, if I was running a company, my backbone would probably be my finance system. You know, but for a college or a university, the student system is that key component to keep the trains running on time.
Well,
What?
Yeah, if
Would
I
you
may.
stop interrupting? No, Douglas, go ahead.
Well, and David, this is you've had a lot of success in the past. This seems like a second time around the bases, if not more than that. What inspired you to stand up Student First as another SIS?
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. Of course, my first foray into the world of higher education was now at one of my competitors, where I was the founder and CEO for about 20 years. And then did exit the business back in 2008, 9, something like that, and began to look for my next venture. Yeah. And at that point in time, I really began to focus a lot on student retention as the next big frontier. Yeah. To sort of focus on and to try to bring some order to that world of chaos. But in this country alone, I think that retention is it's incredibly large number. Yeah. When you think about it, that only maybe just under 60% of the students who start in any freshman cohort actually get a degree.
Yeah, the recent stat, National Student Clearinghouse said that we're talking about some students, some college, no degree, which basically means you dropped out and you dropped school.
That's exactly right.
Went up 2.9% to, I think, 37 million or something like that now. So, I mean, you're talking almost 40 million students. It's insane.
And when you start talking about these numbers, the wasted funding is staggering. Yeah. It's billions of dollars being wasted. So, yikes! I began to think about that and how to impact student retention. And maybe I was a little bit ahead of my time. That was back in the 2012, 13, 14, 15 era. Everybody was willing to talk about how to help students persist. Sure. But at that time, they weren't really sure that of what to do.
Yeah.
And it still sort of was a community that really focused on enrollment and admissions more than, in my view, retaining those students that you had.
Sure.
But as the pool of available new high school graduates has begun to nose over,
Sure.
and enrollments have dropped over the last decade, institutions have finally begun to say, well, it's time to really focus on keeping those students
Yeah.
that are in school.
Can't just bring in another.
Well, because when you think about it, they spend a lot of money to engage that recruit and to get them in a seat in their institution. So to let them drop out in the first 6 months or 8 months, which most of the drops occur in the freshman year, a little less so in the sophomore year, and then sort of if they make it to a junior or senior, they're not dropping.
Yeah.
But it does occur early on. So I spent quite a bit of time researching that. I got to a point with a product that we had developed where I needed something like what today is known as AI.
Yep.
I needed some technology that was in its infancy back then, and I said, well, maybe I'm just ahead of my time, and so I began to think about shelving that product. At the same time, coincidentally, I had conversations with a number of people that I knew from the past,
Yep.
who were all saying, when is someone going to come in and disrupt this student information systems business?
Yeah.
The so-called market leaders are all legacy solutions. They've been around for many, many years, and we're paying premium prices, but getting kind of old stuff.
Sure.
And I thought about that for a while, and began to look at sort of the landscape out there to say, okay, well, what else is underserved? Who's underserved?
Yeah.
And I began to focus on small to mid-sized schools where those so-called market leaders weren't really that focused in serving them.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people to go after Ohio State University or University of Texas, University of Illinois, the big schools that offer multi-million-dollar projects for ERP, SIS type companies. But when you start thinking about where most of the business really lies out there, there's probably 3,500 institutions in this country that fall in the, say, I don't know, under 5,000 or 6,000 student enrollments.
Yeah,
that's where the market is. But yet, the solutions weren't really built for that segment of the marketplace. So I thought, there's a great white space here that we could really have an impact on. So I kind of put the band back together, more or less.
Blues Brother reference.
There we go. And Joe's one of the people that I brought on board with me, although I didn't know Joe before. I'd heard about him and his reputation.
That Joe guy.
Yeah, that Joe guy.
Yeah.
And so I brought people like him on board. We've got some technologists who are second to none that had been with me before and had done a great job. And so I sort of said, hey, guys, how would you like to, after all these years you spent learning the trade, perfecting your craft, how would you like an opportunity with today's technology to build something brand spanking new, no technology debt,
Yeah.
start from a whiteboard and build it the way it should be built, the way we probably should have built it the first time we went around. And, that worked quite well. They came running.
Clean slate.
And clean slate. And so that was about back in 2021. And we began building what we thought was going to be the next generation student information system. And that's why we sort of say that we're the future-ready solution in the marketplace. And we're not bringing legacy technology. We've brought affordability back into the game. There's some levers you can really pull to make that a reality, where most of the marketplace is looking at. If you talk to a school and they say, "Yeah, I really like to upgrade my my systems," or some of them have systems that are actually sunsetting.
Yeah.
And they come to you and they say, "How long does it take?" Well, for most of these systems, it does still take 18 to 24, sometimes 36 months to deliver a student information system. And my vision was to do that in 12 months.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. First, it lowers the cost tremendously.
Sure. Yep.
And secondly, the staff at the institution doesn't get as fatigued because people forget they've got a day job as well as learning something new and helping to implement something new. So, we built our technology, our platform, and that's great. But at the end of the day, it's just a fancy tool. You've got to know how to apply that tool, how to use it effectively to accomplish the mission of the institution, or to help the institution to accomplish its mission. And that's where we, I think, are very aligned with understanding what most of these institutions are committed to. Joe, I'm doing all the talking.
Well, you mentioned something about sort of mission, and I think when you think of the career schools, these folks are extremely mission driven. I mean, they have no choice, right? We are outcomes. We're going to produce a workforce, and we've got to we've got to show results, right? The government expects results from us. And so I think when you start an SIS project and you know that you have this outcome, that you're going to hit these targets, we have to improve this, we're inefficient over here, our recruiting isn't good. When you have those targets from an implementation perspective, it gives you milestones to hit as you're going through, right? And you have purpose. Right?
Yeah, and that word, outcomes, we hear it every day now in higher education, not just in what I call non-traditional education, which is more of the career schools, the vocational schools, the tech schools, but we're hearing it more and more even in the traditional sector. They're starting to warm up to this whole concept of outcomes, which I find refreshing, and hopefully the trend really catches on, because let's face it, very few students, I think, go to school to get a degree. They're really going to school for the ultimate outcome, which is a career, which is a job. And if that weren't the case, I think we wouldn't have, what do we got now, 18, 19 million students in school in the U.S. We wouldn't have half as many students in school if that weren't really what they're after, is the productive career. In fact, I really believe there's going to be more and more focus on that across the higher ed spectrum over the next 5 to 10 years. I think that's going to become paramount to success for institutions. They're already realizing that that's what success really is helping put a person into a productive career to support everything else that goes on in their life. And we're seeing this more and more, that people are not just going to school for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. They're starting to embrace the fact that over a whole career, which might span their lifetime, they might go to school in a number of different times, and there's upskilling. There's all sorts of things that occur, in helping people to better their life, and that's what this is really all about. At the end of the day, is helping people, is taking them from young adulthood to sort of the next stage.
Well, I think the 4-year degree and beyond, I think will continue to, I'll say, lose value, whatever that really means. But I think education will get chunked down to smaller pieces, right? It's the upskilling. What do I need to do next? It's that credential, it's that competency. What did I learn in this class, and how can I apply that to my job, my next venture? And I think in the career space, they're embracing that faster.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, because of the universities that offer, let's say, a 4-year degree, their business model is not set up to chunk that education down. But the consumer is demanding it. So there's going to be some institutions that make it, and there's going to be some that have vested interest in lobbying to keep the value on that 4-year degree and more. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a 3-year bachelor's degree out there.
I've seen it. That's why I said 3 years, yeah.
It's and when we say 3-year bachelor's, not a 4-year bachelor's in 3 years, a true 90 credit hour bachelor's degree, right? And what you're seeing, and you guys probably know this, there are more experimentations happening with models.
Education models and delivery models especially are evolving constantly, being driven by what's now become a consumer space.
Yeah, right.
Going back more than 20 years ago, this was a totally different game. But nowadays, students are definitely consumers, and institutions, to be successful, are having to really focus on, what that consumer base wants. What do they want? Micro-credentials? Do they want, short-term programs? In fact, some of the most successful institutions I know today offer a variety of different models. And then you've got some that are even getting into competency-based models,
Right.
which, you've got some...
You can see subscription-based pricing on those, flat
Yes.
rate pricing, and
Yes.
you've got to configure a system to be able to handle
That's
that.
right.
And a lot of schools cannot get their arms around that kind of stuff.
And
And
that's
that's
the
right.
thing. That's the thing, Joe, I know where you're going to probably say
Well,
something there.
Exactly. Yeah. The legacy vendors, you're sort of, the vested interest, they also have a vested interest to not change their model because their software isn't flexible enough yet today to meet those needs for the subscriptions, the competency-based, those smaller units. Their systems don't chunk down.
Yeah.
And I think that
And
makes
that's
a big
what we
difference.
do. That's one of the things in my career, having built another company that was focused on more non-traditional education, who's really become a force in that market and
Yeah.
moved on to a broader market now. It was all about delivering extreme flexibility in terms of education models, being able to handle not only the workflow part of it, but things like financial aid, Title IV,
Sure.
which you really have to embrace the adoption of the rules of Title IV to your model. And so we spend a lot of time forward-looking as to where things are headed, where they're going, because we don't want to become stagnant.
Yeah.
We don't want to, sit back on our successes and clip the money coupon, but we want to continue to innovate, really. We're innovators. We're disruptors in the market. That's what we came back to do, and so far it's been a wonderful ride for this last 3 years of getting to a point where we're really starting to take a product to market more aggressively. We had our first 20 or so schools that came aboard and said, we'll be early adopters,
Yep.
we'll be influencers, we'll help you, and now we're moving to a different phase, which is to sort of scale up
Sure.
our operation and serve more and more schools.
Well, and you mentioned there's kind of 3,500 probably good targets in the U.S. Are you also thinking internationally, or are you starting in the U.S. and kind of building out from there?
Well, my main focus was to start in the U.S. and eventually go out.
Yep.
But I was it's interesting because there's some opportunities that have arisen in other markets. So we're currently, we started a channel partner program in Latin America, in some of the Latin American countries, because there's been some change in those markets in terms of the product availabilities. There are products that are being sunset out of that market.
Yeah.
They're leaving sort of a vacuum, and so it's one of those things where we're getting inbound messaging and calls saying,
Yep.
we've heard about you guys. We've heard that you're multilingual, and we are, because
Yep.
we developed from scratch to be that way. Our intention was, our model was our business plan was always to serve a broader market. So yeah, we are reaching out. But right now, most of our business is going to continue in the U.S. And like I said, we'll depend on our channel partners to bring us business in these other markets.
Got it.
There's a lot to be said about the right technology in higher education, your stack or your ERP or whatever we want to say it. And there's a lot of different types of technology, right? There's CRMs and SISs and LMSs, and how you put all of that together. If you're a administrator in higher education, a lot of times you don't understand how to put those things together to make them work. It's like a puzzle. What do you think? What advice would you give higher education administrators out there listening to this that are just, as one, I was swimming in technology all the time. It's like this thing, I need that thing, and an API here, an API there, and I've got Google Analytics, and I've got all these things coming in left and right, and all these data sources. How do we think about the future of technology in higher ed?
Well, it's certainly not going to slow down from what I can see. The changes is all around us, and I think the most important thing for institutions is to always embrace change. And that's not an easy thing. It's a very hard thing.
Yeah,
and that's what we focus a lot of our time on, is not just delivering the most cutting-edge, leading-edge tool set, but focus on our delivery model, make sure that we understand how to help the institution manage change, because that's probably the most challenging thing for them. And I think that for people out there as administrators and knowing that they want to invest in their future, it's to make sure that the company that they are dealing with is really focused on the future.
Yeah.
And they're not all focused on the future. If I were like some of the guys in the business who have, more than $500 million a year in revenue, it's easy to sit on your laurels.
Sure.
But you've got to really evaluate your company and make sure they're committed to the future, not just going to do lip service to it.
Well, and I love that you put your money where your mouth is. Going from a 3-year to a 12-month implementation is an example of actually implementing that.
Yeah, it is. And it should have happened. I think that should have happened in higher education a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it didn't serve the interest of some of the bigger companies their model was their model.
Yeah.
They were staffed up. It's not easy to shift.
Sure.
I think some are trying, but I sometimes think that some of the products are just too complex.
Yeah.
Because we got to remember who we're delivering to.
Mm-hmm.
We're not delivering our products to be used by the most tech-savvy people.
Right.
They're not. They're great people.
User experience matters to us.
Yeah.
We touch an iPhone. We want it to be really easy, right? So we expect everything to be like that.
And some of my technology people get a little irritated with me from time to time because people ask me and they say, "Tell us about your product." And I say, "It's simple and it's elegant." And they go, "Why do you say simple? It's not simple." Well, we've taken something very complex and we've tried to really make it simpler.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that people consume it.
Yeah.
And if you don't focus on how people how they learn, how they can consume, then you end up with one of these highly complex, really high-tech products that people aren't able to put to good use in their daily lives. So we know that there's the necessity of change, but we want to make that change mean something.
Yeah.
Douglas, anything else you want to say to take us out, or let these gentlemen go with some outro music?
This has been a great conversation, so appreciate John, and I don't think anything to add, so no notes.
Well, no notes.
Thank you,
we
guys.
wish you guys the best of luck as you talk with your potential current and potential clients and partners out there in the space. I think everybody needs a great partner in higher education. I still can't get my microphone stand to stand up after Douglas kicked it off, but I'm going to let you guys get out of here. We've got David Meek and Joe Fisher from Student First. Gents, thanks for joining us here today. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Douglas.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just ed up.